Welcome to the Masters of Resilience podcast. This show is an exploration of the unseen and unheard stories of adversity that shape the journeys of high performers. These conversations will help you better understand the mindset, habits, and behaviors that empower these exceptional leaders to endure the most challenging moments of their careers and emerge stronger than ever. Your hosts are Ryan Seager and Mark Phillips. Let's dive in to more.
Today's episode is one that I'm really excited about. We're joined with Marcus Philly, former CrossFit Games athlete and founder of Functional Bodybuilding. In this conversation, Marcus gets real about the mental battles so many of us face, from dealing with anxiety to redefining what high performance really looks like. We talk about the power of not quitting, what success looks like when it comes to wellness, and why taking care of your body is one of the most strategic things you can do for your mind. Mark and I are both followers and believers in what Marcus and the Functional Bodybuilding team are creating. And if you're interested in learning more for your own wellness journey, please explore the details in the show notes. If you find value in what we discussed today, please share the show with others and give us a rating on all platforms. That's how we grow. This one goes deep. Let's dig into it. As we start, as you look back over the last decade or two in your CrossFit competition career and starting Functional Bodybuilding, getting married, having kids, what's been one of the biggest challenges that you've faced throughout that journey?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's been many. Starting a family was a challenge and a blessing. Starting my own business as opposed to being a partner in another business. I think ultimately shedding my CrossFit competitive athlete identity and all the things that went with that was a many-year process that was also like the foundation and the origin story of functional bodybuilding. But there was parts of it that were internally difficult. And and I think probably, when I was getting started in fitness, the beginning of my fitness career was driven by a lot of passion. But I had to make a big detour in life. I was a pre-med school dropout. And so that carried some like weight with it, where it was like, I can't mess this up. So yeah, there's a handful of them.
So how do you, as you're going through there, obviously there's going from the competing side to the entrepreneur side. How do you kind of shift in terms of like what your purpose is? How do you make that shift? I think that's tough for a lot of us that are going through life transitions.
Mine was, I sort of wore two hats for close to a decade, where I was like an athlete and trying to build my career. I think that first stage of my life was like become a very good fitness professional, coaching. It was not really entrepreneurial, like in spirit, even though I was a business owner. I owned a CrossFit gym. But those were the days when owning a CrossFit gym was like, if you were a really good coach, this was like an extension of that. You kind of like took your coaching skills and you're like, I'll just open up a gym because I'm already coaching all the stuff and may as well have my own place. But most of the challenges that I faced in that period of time were from just ignorance about what it means to run a successful business. And I basically did that for 6 years without knowing what I was doing. But honing my craft as a coach and a fitness educator. And it was simultaneously, that was a simultaneous growth journey right alongside being a competitive athlete. And I played competitive sports my whole life. However, after high school and through college, competitive athletics were a very different experience for me. Up until 16, 17 years old, I was the guy that was, the best on the team or winning awards and getting to like experience what it was like to be at the top of the game. And then college was my first real experience with being at like the, bottom of the pecking order. And that lasted for 3 years for me. Before I basically quit. I didn't finish my senior year playing, collegiate sports. But thankfully, as I reflect on it now, that was meant to happen to me because it gave me an opportunity to see what it is about sport that I truly loved. And it was really the physical development aspect of it. And I poured a lot of my time and energy into developing athletically, physically, strength, muscle. And that was where I took my passion for movement and fitness and really internalized it. And it became the lens that I look at life through during college. So, it fast forward to like 2017 was really this big transition for me where I went from being a coach and a competitive athlete to now mostly just being an entrepreneur, continuing to coach and educate, but having to say, okay, well, how do I take this skill that I have and turn it into something that is more stable for my future, which is going to involve and include, family.
Right.
Because I had just gotten married and had my first kid in 2017.
That's so crazy. So you did that all in the same year. You started FKB and got married and had a kid. That's a big year.
I got married in 2016, did my last CrossFit Games, had a kid in 2017, Functional Bodybuilding officially launched in 2017. So yeah, it was a very busy 12 months.
I want to come back to that, but even in just the first 5 minutes here, you've talked 2 times in your life, you've already shared with us that there was something that you left, you quit, you didn't finish.
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy in our society to describe that as a failure. And yet the way that you have framed both of those experiences, collegiate athletics and med school, it sounds like that was actually the thing you needed to let die in order for new life to grow. How does that experience of letting those things die, how does that inform who you are today as an entrepreneur and as a father and as a husband?
Yeah. I mean, the quitting of college soccer it felt like an easy choice for me because I had spent 3 years dedicating a lot to something that I got a lot from, but not in the way that most people think you get something from collegiate athletics. And I knew I had a lot of value that I brought to it, and it either wasn't valued or I wasn't skilled or good enough to be, the stereotypical star player. But I also was leaving it to pursue the next thing that was already on my plate, which was a heavy course load and getting into medical school. So it was clear, like, okay, I have to give this up because there's something that's demanding more of my time in front of me that I'm focused on. Med school is a different story because med school was something that was extremely painful for a short period of time. It was 12 months of, because I finished 1 year and started my second year, and I had a lot of weight and momentum and things holding me like to this path that I had been building up for, the previous 4 years. And you could even go as far back as like childhood. Where it was like, oh, you're going to be a great physician like your dad and like your brother, and, following in some footsteps that were there, and a very clear lifestyle and career that was sort of illustrated for me.
Right.
But being in medical school, once I got there, I'd go as far as to say it was like a torturous experience. Like I was extremely driven to be excellent at whatever I was doing. This time it was like mostly out of fear and anxiety. It's like, I got to keep doing this thing. I can't not be the best in the class. I am only going to score perfect scores on everything. Like, I just sat around and studied all the time. And in my free time, I would exercise, and I didn't have much of a social life, and I felt really isolated. And I was in, the Midwest for the first time in my life. experiencing a winter that really shocked me and rocked me hard. And I didn't see a future in this field. I saw all the things that I was passionate about just evaporating. Movement, nutrition, physical development, teaching people how to be healthy. I was in a healthcare system that, as it was being introduced to me, was not about health promotion. It was really like, we only got 4 years with you. We got to teach you as much as we can so that you can identify why people are sick or what people are sick with, and then treat it with these these methods that we're using. And I never wanted to do that. And I didn't realize how difficult that process was going to be in order to achieve something that ultimately I found out I could do through the health and fitness, career.
Yeah.
So that one was like a very tough one to let go of. Like I was scared. I was terrified to let go of it. And that's why I hung on so long. And I kind of just took a leap of faith because I was so miserable. I was like, I can't do this anymore. My brain and my body had shut down and I was desperate. And so I left. And I had a safety net of, hey, if it doesn't work out for the next year, you can come back to, med school and you can finish out with the next class that's coming through. You just pick up where you left off. But that definitely gave me a lot of fire and motivation to go out and see if I could succeed doing something that felt a lot more aligned to my interests and my passions and what I really believed was like, this is what health promotion should look like.
So when you took those steps, when was kind of the light bulb moment for you when it's like, okay, this is really why I'm chasing this different path?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
Yeah. So I got into coaching CrossFit within probably 3 months of leaving medical school. I think probably I left in like, we'll call it August. And then by October, I was coaching some of my first CrossFit classes, which were exhilarating, nerve-wracking, steep learning curve, trying to teach barbell, Olympic lifting to a group of 30 people in a tight space, most of whom are like, just busy 30 to 40-year-old professionals and moms and dads. That's one of the hardest things anybody can do. And, but that was not like what really lit me up. Like I recall getting more responsibility and sort of having these like new customers coming into the CrossFit gym. And they were saying, hey, you do these 3 one-on-one sessions with a coach to learn the fundamentals, and then you can jump into group classes. It was sort of like the standard procedure back then for most gyms. And I just recall getting like a chance to have 3 hours with an individual person and share knowledge, teach them what I needed to teach them, but do it in a way that I had a lot of freedom to do it the way I wanted to do it, to see them light up with confidence, with, laughter, with feeling like they had just done something very difficult that they didn't think they could do, and getting a number of them to sort of tell me like, hey, I really like working with you. Can we just do some one-on-one sessions? And so I started my first personal training, sessions with people, and, and to be honest, it was like, I was kind of getting the working, but many stay-at-home moms that were, again, like in their mid 30s, early 40s, and getting a chance to like teach them how to be strong, and just having these experiences with them where they were really feeling like a renewed sense of self-confidence that they had lost from having had children recently, and just sort of, giving their bodies and their entire lives over to caring for another human. And I distinctly recall, like, we had multiple gyms that I would coach at that were all under the same brand, TJ's Gym. I was driving from one that was like further north. I was driving back to like the headquarters, and I was in the car, And I had either just had a great session or I got a text message from somebody. And it was just like this overwhelming sense of like fulfillment and emotion that just came over me. I remember crying in the car, just being like, oh my God, like I'm 4 months from the worst day of my life when I was like laying on the floor, crying to my parents, telling them I was dropping out of med school, to feeling like, oh my God, I found some purpose again and something that I'm good at and people value it. And nothing could be better. Nothing is better than this. I don't care if I never make anything close to a physician's salary for the rest of my life. I will just do this and I will feel like I have found purpose in something that I'm good at.
Goodness. So remarkable. There's so much goodness in here, Marcus. I just want to touch on for a moment, because you alluded to this route of being a physician was something that had been molded and kind of like grafted onto you. And that's a really hard thing to separate from, expectations of family, expectations of parents. Like they're all usually good intended, it's not as if somebody wanted the worst for you, but it's so easy to try to live somebody else's life.
Yeah.
As opposed to just finding the motivation in the things that actually bring us joy. And maybe you could just touch on that for a minute. The two words that I'm sensing are really speaking to your motivation. Your motivation of being a physician was fear of I can't fail. I might never measure up. And now the joy in this new season of like, I just want to help, and to see the release or the opportunity to create joy for others. What a gift. Do you think most people can appreciate whether or not they're operating from a place of motivation of fear or a motivation of joy?
I don't think enough people stop to think about it. And I think the data is pretty like compelling and clear that people that we label as like very ultra high achievers, who have built things that will be remembered for generations, the vast majority of them achieve that success and were motivated through more fear than they were joy and fulfillment.
Interesting.
It's a very common thing that ultra high achievers will share as a trait. I never felt like I was good enough, so I was out to prove something. And it was like constantly running from some shadow that was trying to swallow them up and spit them out. And those are fear-driven, scarcity-driven motivators. And there's part of that was there for me, even during this passionate, growth phase through coaching was, I would run into people that were friends of mine from high school or knew me. And they'd be, oh, what are you up to? Like, how's it going? I'm like, oh, I dropped out of med school. They're like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, did you just absolutely become addicted to substances and just completely, fall into a gutter somewhere? Like how on earth did, Marcus, who was top of the class in high school, like end up being a grad school dropout kind of thing? And so I was like, okay, well, I have to prove something to myself. Maybe it's proving something to my dad, who was skeptical of my choices, and also I think really it's just like, I only had this identity as like a high achiever, and I have to now do that again and again and again. I can't actually have anything less than that in my life. I'm doing something new. I got to keep working hard. The other part that was happening at that time was, CrossFit as a sport. I loved CrossFit. I loved training. I despised competing. It was absolutely the most anxiety-provoking thing that I had ever done in sport. And it only got worse as I got better. And it only got worse as social media started to really be a place where people were showcasing their highlight reel of their fitness. And I was absolutely sucked into it. And so my entire CrossFit growth curve until I competed at the highest level and then had my best finish in 2016 was heavily driven by a fear of just showing up and not meeting the expectations that I had set from my previous showing. The first competition I ever did where nobody knew who I was, it was scary because I knew it was going to hurt. The second competition was scary because people thought, oh, he's pretty good. And then the third competition was hard because they were like, oh, yeah, Philly's in the top 10. Oh, Philly wasn't in the top 10 on that workout. Like, why did he blow it? It just, the expectations kept growing from others and of myself. And so, yeah, passion and joy are beautiful things to find. And they oftentimes are not as strong a motivator for people, for myself, as that little bit of fear, and in some cases, a lot of fear and anxiety and worry. Because I think we are truly built for survival. And in those moments of fear, we push out all these hormones that really move us into action, adrenaline, cortisol, where we have to go get stuff done. And you can really ride that cortisol and adrenaline for a long time.
I've heard it also said that fear is to your point, an excellent short-term motivator, but in the long run, love and joy are the strongest long-term motivators. And I think something you shared, which I agree with very strongly, is this: you felt like, if I can kind of speak into it, you felt like during your time in med school, even though fear was the motivator, you were feeling kind of disintermediated as a person, right? Like who you wanted to be, kind of this like whole sound being, your body, your mind, all these things. Like you had to focus on one thing because the fear was driving that. No doubt the people that have kind of changed the world, it does feel like fear is the motivator. But if we look at who they are as people, whether that's as mothers, fathers, moms, dads, sisters, and brothers, they're not terribly healthy across the board. They have areas of their life that they have completely neglected. And that's sometimes what it takes to change the world. And so more power to them. Each person, I think, simply has to make a choice. Are you someone that wants to be?
You're right. It's like they make those choices and they rationalize it in their head. And, I was kind of, I felt like I've been in a unique position where I am here trying to teach people how to live a healthy life, promote not just short-term change, physical change, but long-term health. And there's no faster way to die a quick death or drive your body into the ground than an over indexing on adrenaline, cortisol, stress, and fear. You do that too much and the physical consequences are dramatic. The emotional, mental consequences, come right alongside with that. And so there have been plenty of times in the past decade where I have felt I'm not living the balanced life that I'm promoting because I'm being driven by this. I need to make an adjustment. I need to find a way to bring both of these things into some harmony. And that has very much been my personal, decade-long journey. Is my 30s were full of that. I did my last CrossFit Games. I was 31 years old. So 9 years ago, I have definitely tried to play that line and probably swayed more towards fear, anxiety as a driver through a lot of it. And at the same time, 2024 was the most joyous, balanced year of my life that felt, truly transformative. And I transformed my relationship to my wife. I transformed my relationship to my kids. I transformed the way I approached my business and the way I was working. So I've had these these powerful light moments and bright spots along the journey that have shown me okay, there's a way to do this that really works for people. And there's a way to do it that absolutely doesn't. And, the hard lessons and the failures or the doing it wrong, those have been the biggest teachers to teach, to pass along to people who are in similar shoes, which most people are.
Yeah.
So go deeper on 2024 for us. Like what was it that helped you feel like you were, I don't know if harmony was the word you used, but like what do you feel like what caused or supported you being dialed in when it comes to family and health and all that type of balance?
Yeah. Well, it started with 2023 being a pretty low year. Mental health wise, it was a really challenging year for me where my anxiety that I've dealt with on and on for my whole life, as far back as, I can remember being anxious as like a 6, 7, 8-year-old, where I was nervous for the next day of school. I was nervous for, the thing that I think I distinctly remember being on like a chairlift at maybe the first time I ever really experienced like, not like a panic attack, but like a strong sense of anxiety. I was on this chairlift at Squaw Valley. It was called Squaw Valley back in the day. And it was Sunday and we were taking our last ride of the day, last run of the day. And it flashed. I was like, oh shoot, like tomorrow I have to go to school and I have homework or something. And I was just like, I felt this tightening in my chest. I felt this sort of like, oh my gosh, like I got to get out of here. Like I'm not present. Like my mind just completely went somewhere else. And those are like the hallmarks of like anxiety. It's like not present, completely caught up in your thoughts, and they're taking you in places that may or may not ever come to reality. And so from that point till I was, let's say, all the way until I'm now, it's like I've experienced that in a lot of different ways. The anxiety triggers as a 38-year-old, father, business owner, homeowner, husband, like they're way different than they were then, but it's the same kind of fundamental physiological response and psychological response that's happening. And it had just gotten to a point where it was not, I didn't have the tools, like whatever tools I had were not helping break that cycle. Like I couldn't get out of it. It was just like this perpetual state of fear and anxiety to the point where I'd go to bed scared, be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this thing? How am I going to keep this business, successful, keep paying for this house? And like afraid to wake up the next day because I didn't know if I could do it. And then, just like in med school, it's like I can handle it for so long, and then I reach a threshold where it's like, okay, I'm just shutting down. Like I'm not fighting against this thing, isn't working. And I kind of reached that point in like the end of 2023. And I remember sitting there in therapy with my wife and just being like, yeah, like this is not it. I need a different, I'm open to whatever, whatever I've been resistant to in the past, whatever approach, whatever therapy, whatever medication, like something just has to change because I can see the impact that it's having now on the people around me, not just myself. And, in December 23, I, broke down against my like resistance from like, pharmaceutical intervention for mental health issues, like basically anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications, because I had tried them when I was like in my 20s in college, and I tried them in medical school and never felt like really any significant improvement. And also had experienced people not misdiagnosing, but misunderstanding me and just being like, dude, you're a normal kid that's just a little stressed out. Let's just take this med. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like I am pursuing a path and a life that I don't want. And I feel fundamentally at odds with this immense amount of pressure and work that I'm pushing through for no end that I can even fathom enjoying. And they're like, no, it's just normal. You're good. Like everything's going to be okay. Just take this. And so my experiences with, antidepressants or medication had this like cloud of, I don't think people get me and understand me. And certainly the healthcare providers that I work with, But here I was at the end of 23 and I'm like in lockstep with like my mental health, providers, my therapist, my wife, like she's a psychologist. Like I do a lot of great things for my physical health and mental wellness that are, trying to sleep, move, eat well, right? Like I just reached a point where I'm like, I'm checking all the boxes that I think I can right now, and something's still off. And so I started taking, a prescription antidepressant in December of 23. And, granted, it had been 15 years since I had been on any medication. This was a new type of medication that I hadn't been on before. And I remember waking up on January 1st, 2024. So it's New Year's Day. We're on like a little vacation. And I turned to my wife and I was like, it's like, babe, something feels really different. Like there was kind of that like mental cloud just like lifted. And I remember the next 2 days, I had like an experience in myself that I hadn't felt probably in my life. And I'd say it just got better from there. And I sort of approached 2024 now with like this, what felt like a new lease on life. I was like, I think I just have been living under this like cloud of anxiety that has been just holding me down for a long time. And this was like my momentary relief to say, okay, you have a chance to like wake up and go to bed not in fear. What are you going to fill that space with? And I really leaned into my relationship to my wife in a way that I had probably never done before, which was like, how do I get super curious about this person that is my partner that I'm sharing this life with, that we have kids together with? And like, how do I get super curious about my children? How do I like turn the focus away from me? Because my experience of anxiety is it becomes all consuming and it's a very selfish place. Like nobody's doing it because they want it. It's just like when you're in that fear state, it's like, how do I just fix this thing that's here? And I realized I'm like, oh, I've been spending pretty much our whole relationship just focused on how I'm going to deal with my own fear and not really leaning into like, what does this person have that I can access through curiosity, through turning towards them, through just being like, hey, this is, it's not about me. Like, I don't need it to be about me right now. I'm good. Let's make it about you. And really that became this massive, like the true transformation that happened was like, oh, I got this mental lift. Now I can like look at the world and be like, whoa, like what was tunnel vision is now 360-degree view. I see 4 dimensions. Like I can feel that there's so much out there for me to learn from and grow from. And I'm going to start right here at home. And that really spread to just so many parts of my life over the like throughout the year that I could say with confidence, like, okay, I've fundamentally experienced life in a way that I didn't believe and I didn't have access to in the 39 years that preceded that.
Wow.
That's powerful.
What a gift, Marcus. That's really powerful.
Yeah, that's super.
Yeah, it's a gift that I wish for a lot of people who I see. And what I've also come to learn now that we're like months into 2025 is that like, I'm not immune from it. Like I can go back into that space. And I can certainly go back into that space when I don't take good self-care. And we can touch on that, what those last 3 months have looked like for me and how I've gotten away from my own personal self-care and why. But if somebody is going through a phase where they're in a lot of pain or they're running from fear,
right?
It's like the instinct as humans is to, I got to fix this thing. And that's got to happen like inward.
Yeah.
And really it's like the outward looking, like in channeling your energy away from you and just sort of giving to other people, or being curious about other people in your environment and what your community and the people that you share space with, it's like one of the most healing things that we had access to. It is truly so healing.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because like I heard my wife say it for a long time. She's like, in the kindest, most gentle way, hey, what if you just like stop stressing about this thing, or just like change your focus from this and like just go have a really good time with the kids. And I'm just like, yeah, in theory, that's great, but I'm just, I feel stuck over here.
Right. That's so real.
Yeah. It's so well said. I want people to hear that, because I think we're in a, kind of in that Instagram reel life where, you see the mountaintop moments. And, I know a lot of your business, Marcus, and brand is built around, content, and it's helped so many people, myself included. But I think that transparency is a real thing. And I want people to feel like, when you open up to that, I think there's a whole nother level, and probably levels, plural, that you can get to, just as an individual and as a human, as a husband, a wife, all of that. And I think that's such a powerful thing when we open up, that's just outside of our self-absorbed nature.
Something there's like a million, obviously, places we could take this conversation, but in the present moment, there is so much conversation and attention on the growth and development of technology and artificial intelligence, and speculation as to what the future may hold because of this new technology that can basically rapidly learn and solve problems that we don't even know exist yet in a very short time horizon. And so I listened to Bill Gates, and this is like a interview that he's had recently that's kind of gotten a lot of, snippets and sound bites all over social media. But I think to summarize what he says, it's like there's going to be a moment in the future, and not too far out, where AI is going to help solve the majority of, if not all, scarcity issues on the planet. And when I hear that, I'm like, okay, if I go backwards from what he's saying, scarcity is the driver of so much fear and anxiety. There isn't enough. I'm not going to have enough. I need to work really hard in order to have the things that I need, because there's a scarcity of resources out there: money, food, medical services, education, you name it. And we're all, me, and I think many people, most people, their fear and their anxiety is driven from this societal driver of scarcity. Modern Western and even, third world developing nations, people wake up and they are moved into action based out of a fear of scarce resources. How do I go get the thing that everyone else wants to get that there isn't enough of? And it really has just completely, I think about it a lot, because I hear that and I'm like, oh my gosh, in a world where there isn't scarcity, what is left? Like, what do we do? What are we afraid of? Where does our anxiety come from? What do we do to fill that space that we were spending being worried about not being able to produce or get the thing that we want? And I've even thought about it as it relates to fitness. It's like so many people are driven to be fit out of feeling of shame, hatred, and like in some permutation, fear of what they look like, feel like, what they will not be able to accomplish with their failing, ailing bodies. And if there comes a time where that is no longer a limitation for people, where gene therapy, some other, pharmaceutical or some type of therapy that maybe doesn't even exist yet can solve that for people. It's like, there's so many people I work with that spend a disproportionate amount of their day hating themselves because of the way they look. And it's like, wow, what if that is erased? And what if people can wake up with a fit, healthy body that they look in the mirror and love, and then they can go about what the hell else can we accomplish and feel or experience? It's just wild to me.
Well, you framed it so interestingly. I have not heard the kind of AI narrative brought all the way to that conclusion, like all the way to your business. But the flip side of it would be if all, using the example of like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If all of our needs are met, do we have the opportunity then to operate from a place of not scarcity, but abundance?
Right.
I mean, maybe the question to kind of get at it, how many of the people you've worked with in the fitness world, Marcus, get to a place where they actually they exercise out of joy. They exercise because they love the way their body feels after they exercise and they challenge it. Like, is that 5%? Is it 10%? And can AI get us to a point where it's like
less than that? It's probably less than 5%. There are people that do it.
Yeah. Are you one of them? Would you say that about yourself?
No way.
No,
I'm not there yet. Yeah, it's somewhere in there is like, if I stop doing this, like, will I look? Well, how will I look? How will it affect my business? Like, will I have any credibility? Will anybody even want to pay attention to me as I try and
it's all
combine this knowledge and
it's kind of connected into the life you've crafted.
Yeah, of course, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and it's like, you said like people operating from a place of abundance. You just think about like how many, gurus and online coaches and people are like, they talk about like, if you can channel that mindset, meditate on it, morning affirmations, work from abundance, like you can attract abundance into your life. And I don't think that's all woo woo and like garbage, I think people can take that too far and they spend, 6 hours a day just like meditating on abundance and not taking action, which doesn't really equate to much except for a wasted time and probably lots of failures in your meditation.
Probably.
But there is something to that where it's like, when you're operating from a place of love and abundance, you start to see that in the world around you. And then then you're attracted to those things and, people are attracted to you and, where you're like constantly in fear, then you're working your way into Reddit threads about fear and this and that and doom scrolling. And, so you kind of just move in these directions. And so, yeah, certainly it's like, if we got to that place where people actually were operating out of that, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I even like what you said though, because I asked you if you exercise because of the joy of it, but you said not yet. You said not. You didn't say no. You said not yet. And I think even just that little mindset shift is such an important one, right? Because I think a lot of people would be like, "No, I'll never get there," right? But these opportunities are in front of us, and we can go and get them.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like it's 75% joy, 25% fear, or some balance of that. Where I think, for the most part, like when I wake up, I'm like, the best part of my day is going to be when I train on a lot of days, and that is definitely a joyful experience, for sure.
So I want to transition to, obviously you've worked with a bunch of different clients and folks, and I think there's a lot of high performers that are listening to this content. And, what are some of I'm going to call them the big rocks? So fitness, wellness with fitness and nutrition, like what are the things that you've found for people to be really good things for them to cling to? I mean, I come from a background of training and athletics and things, but like what are, if you were to give people kind of some big rocks of kind of Marcus Philly knowledge, what would those be?
Well, I'll cover the basics, which could be like rocks that people haven't thought of. But essentially it's train, keep moving, and eat enough protein with whatever approach works for you to manage your energy intake. Now, each of those has they're not just the same things people spout out over and over again. Training is, I basically reserve that for anything that builds muscle strength and like a high capacity energetically for you, like so metabolic conditioning, like intense metabolic conditioning, the time you train is only defined in my eyes as when you're out trying to move your threshold of strength, muscle, or, conditioning to a new level.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to basically be a staple, minimum 3 days a week for an hour for the rest of your life.
Mm.
What moves the needle at different ages and different stages is different, but it has to be something that you cling to, and it has to be a fundamental piece to it. And so you have to figure out, what do you enjoy enough to do that you can do it 3 days a week for the rest of your life until AI solves that problem. Number 2, you have to keep moving your body. There needs to be a certain amount of measurable physical activity in your day, and you cannot rely on randomness there to get it done. So it needs to be objective. And I'll give you a great example of this. I hear a lot of clients and people I've worked with over the years say, yeah, I'm just like, I don't like going to the gym. I love playing sports. I love being outdoors. That's how I like to get my movement. And then I'm like, okay, so talk to me about how much you're outdoors and play sports. It's like, well, 42 now, like I don't have a lot of time. I got kids. I don't have a way to get that done. I'm like, okay, cool. So what you like to do, you don't have access to. So what are we going to do instead? Because you got to fill this bucket, and you're not filling it, and you haven't filled it for 5 years, some cases 10 years, some cases since you were in college. So why the hell are you still talking about, I love to be outdoors and I love to do this, I don't like going to the gym? I'm like, I don't care what you like to do. It's what can you do? What do you have access to? And the thing that everyone has access to is their feet, or just about everybody has their feet, and they can get out and walk. And so steps have been talked about a lot as this health hack. If you walk 10,000 steps a day, highly, it's a high correlate to like longevity and health. But it's because it fills this second bucket that I'm talking about, which is you need a certain amount of non-exercise physical activity. People that sit and then go train like savages for an hour and then come back to sitting all day, they are not optimal, and they are not healthy generally. So how are you filling bucket number 2? Hey, if you go on if you play pickup rugby 3 days a week, which one of my clients does, I'm like, dope. Like, that's not training. That's just like recreational sports. Just know that in 10 years, when you're not playing that and you're wondering why you're not as healthy and as fit as you used to be, it's because you took away the sort of like, random, exciting, fun activity that you used to do. I said the third one is protein, and then some effective way to control your calories. So it does feel interesting and remarkable to me. It's like I'm in this fitness world where protein is talked about so to exhaustion, and every single person that I know that has a great physique and who is very muscled and strong and fit, none of them miss their protein. 0 of them miss their daily requirements of protein. The vast majority of people who are not in shape, fit, healthy, winning in their fitness don't get enough protein. Okay, let's really let that sink in. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta get protein. Most people have no idea what enough protein looks like. They've heard 1 gram per pound of body weight, but they don't know what that actually looks like. The number of people that start working with me that are like, yeah, I had a high protein breakfast. I'm like, well, what did you have? It's like, I had 2 eggs and I had oatmeal and I had a piece of fruit. And I'm like, sweet. Those are
12 grams of protein.
Yeah, that's like 12 grams, maybe 15 if you count the protein that you're getting from your oatmeal.
Right.
Okay. And that's 1 of 3 meals you're going to have. So if we just like average that out, maybe you're going to get 70 grams of protein. That's not enough for the average person whose body weight is between 180 and 250 pounds. Because that is what average body weights are if you look at men, women in the United States. So getting an understanding, not just that protein's important, but physically going and measuring it learning where it comes from in your food sources, learning how to get a lot of it without, number 4, going crazy on your calories. Hey, I had a great protein breakfast. What'd you have? I had 4 pieces of bacon, I had 4 eggs, and I had, some leftover ribeye from last night. Like, dude, you crushed your protein. You know what else you crushed? You just crushed 900 calories for breakfast. And your body's daily requirements right now with your activity level and your body composition is about 2,100 calories per day. If you want to maintain, maybe lose a little bit of fat. So you just ate about half of your calories for the entire day at breakfast, as compared to somebody who has a bowl of non-fat Greek yogurt and a side of egg whites with, a serving of fruit. That person ate a 350 to 400 calorie meal with 60 grams of protein. They just met a third of their daily requirements for protein. They kept it under a third, actually under a quarter of their daily requirements for calories, and they're just as full. They felt satiated, and they're on their way to a successful day with food. And so understanding where your calories are coming from, and, look, every food list that's out there that's like, this is what you should eat. Like, the vast majority of them are whole foods, high food volume, meaning they take up a lot of space for minimal calories. If you can figure out how to put that into your pantry and learn that process, you end up winning without having to do too much meticulous tracking of things in an app or whatever. But most people don't know that yet because they've never tracked their food diligently to understand. And the reason the food portion of this gets me like so fired up, as well as the movement, is that we're in a society where if you just go with the flow, if you just intuit your way through life, you are guaranteed to slow down and not move and eat in an excess of calories. Those are guaranteed for anybody who just says, I'm just going to go with what my biology is telling me. I'm just going to intuit this thing. I'm going to just do what's out there and I've been told is healthy. Almost 100% of people that have that mindset are on a path to being over consumers and under movers. And that is a recipe for all disease. Just about. Aside from congenital stuff and, random gene mutations that lead to cancers and traumatic, accidents that happen. The underlying cause for almost all chronic illnesses is overconsumption, under movement, which leads to energy imbalance, where you put on body fat. That body fat accumulates in and around your visceral organs, and it disrupts dramatically what happens to your physiology to the point of disease. It also, like, we could go through like the list of all the pathophysiology that's underlying when you're in an energy surplus on a routine basis. But the exposure that your cells get to lots of, elevated blood glucose and, over storage that messes up cellular function, it's just ongoing. So that's why I'm like, these are such basic pillars, but in today's world, you have to bring like almost C-level executive function to just meet those things, because you're surrounded by so much that is going to tell you it's cool to sit down, it's cool to do less, go do this activity, use this device, scroll the social media, eat this healthy food from this takeout place. Here's Uber Eats. You can just click a button, get food sent to you. Like our evolutionary biology and the way our brains are wired is for comfort and calories. And there's so many ways to get comfort and there's so many ways to get calories in today's world. We needed that a long time ago when there was no calories around and life was freaking hard.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, work hard so you can go and chill out. You got to get out there and go hunt the food and pick the berries and do the thing. So I need you to have a strong neurological hormonal drive to go do that. So we built the machinery for millions of years, and then boom, we just landed in the utopia of couches, comfort, cars, and calories at every turn of the planet. You are never more than about 1 minute to 3 minutes away from tens of thousands of calories of energy, which our brain is wired to want to go get. This is like everyone wakes up each day staring down Mount Everest of how to stay in energy balance. How am I going to do this? Because there's so many ways to do it wrong, and it's just there. And so to me, those 4 pillars, they're simple, but in execution, it takes like a relentless amount of like energy and focus on it for a long period of time before it becomes this thing that people call like, oh, it's just my habits and my routine. And those are the people I work with, my one-on-one clients, where they're like 6 months in and I'm having conversations with them. And I know in their head, they're like, I can't believe I'm still having to do this thing with Marcus and talk about this stuff because I keep screwing up. And I'm like, you're not screwing up. You have a machine that is built to fail in an environment that is out to mess this whole process up for you. So give yourself a break. I've been doing it for 20 years and I still mess up all the time.
Yeah.
So just get over yourself and recognize that this is the life we're living in. And yeah, AI may solve those problems. Pharmaceuticals may solve those problems, but for now, it's okay. And just get yourself a teammate that knows where the failures are and is here to remind you how to overcome them and to forgive yourself and to move on.
So if you look at the people who've had success of your clients, is the characteristic that is most indicative of success, willingness to forgive, willingness to like acknowledge I am not perfect, but I'm making progress? Or is there a different characteristic?
I think it depends on how you define success. You know, I think a lot of people think like, oh, the most successful clients are the ones that have like the transformation pictures and, you know, crush the body transformation and before and after. Most of those people are running from some fear. They're heavily motivated to challenge themselves aggressively. A little bit of that Goggins mentality. The people who have modest transformations, but over time, success for them looks like, being able to forgive themselves, recognize this is a long journey, and really start to just enjoy life around them with less of the noise of, I hate my body, I'm a failure, I can, like I have no control over food. Like those people are the ones that, I think really learn that this is a challenging process, a lifelong process. They can't screw it up in one day. They can only screw it up if they fail. And the reason they fail, they can't screw it up unless they quit. That's the line. You can't fail in one day. The only way you fail is if you quit. And they're recognizing that they have quit so many times in their life because they couldn't forgive themselves. And once they can acknowledge that, overcome that, it's like we're all going to have hits. We're all going to have bumps along the way. It's just like how quickly you get back on the train after you got knocked off. And that's like the process of forgiveness. That's a process of realizing like, hey, I'm a human. That happened. It impacted me. And if I do it 20 more times and then quit, like it's going to really impact me. It's like I just have this client that, they're not all wins for me. All right. I've worked with her for 7 months and she ultimately was, and I would define this as like, she reached the point where she's like, I can't handle failing anymore or falling off. And somebody there and me having to be accountable to somebody that I'm going to tell them like, they know, they see me doing it. And I don't even if I coach from a place of like non-judgment and being like, hey, this happens, like, we're just going to get back on the train. I think she was at her threshold of like, I just don't want to be seen screwing up. I don't want to be seen missing my steps and binge eating and missing my workouts. I just don't want to have somebody else see it, because when I know you're looking at it, I'm taking a closer look at it, and I can't handle seeing it every day. And it's like, that is often when people quit with me, and they're like, I can't do it anymore. And that is just a shame. That is a shame cycle that, like I truly want people to be able to overcome that. And if they do, compare that to another client of mine who I'm working with right now, where she's like, just went on vacation. I had a little bit of a backslide, but I'm okay. And I'm back at it this week. And it was the best vacation I've had with my family in a decade, because I wasn't shaming myself for every drink that I had, every meal that we had out, and for not working out.
Right.
Because I knew I could come back to something that felt really consistent. And it's like, they're the same person.
Right. And in fact, that person who doesn't shame themselves actually comes back with more energy, more enthusiasm to like show up consistently for the next month, 3 months, 6 months.
Exactly.
That's so good. What is that hard for you, Marcus, when a client has to bow out in that way? How do you experience that type of fracturing?
I mean, I have not yet gotten to the point where I don't take that on myself as like, man, I don't think I did right by this person. Where did I misstep? It's a sad day. I feel more at peace with it now than I did 5-10 years ago. Because I know what I bring to the relationships, and I know the value of having those conversations. And I know the value of like, look, I might be working on like getting this one client more muscle on their quads by doing like a very quad specific focused training program. And this client over here, I'm just having daily check-ins where we're talking about, the shame that they're experiencing from not doing the thing that in the back of their mind they know they're supposed to be doing. And like those conversations are just as powerful, even though I'm not like fitness coaching them, I'm more life coaching them and, giving them mental health support in a way, not as a trained professional. And it's like, I can see like, hey, we had a win, they fell off, we had another win. And along the way, I've done enough to point out like, you're a strong person in there with the ability to have a mindset that can overcome this long term. And in this one recent example, I was like, I had to kind of pull back and be like, you know what? Like, this is the third time you have said this to me in the last 2 months, like, where basically like, I think I'm done. And the first 2 times, like, I worked hard to win you back because I believe that we had more, like you were on the cusp of something great. And the third time I was like, you know what? I got to let you go. Like, you need to go through this on your own for a while. And in some cases, it's like, they might come back to me in a year and just say like, either I want to work with you again, or come back to me in a year and be like, you know what? I found another approach and it really worked for me and I'm thriving, or I might never hear from them again. In any case, I can I feel more at peace with it now, but I don't leave it like being like, I rocked it. I crushed it. Like,
right.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking for opportunities to learn and grow from it.
I mean, I think that's it's really kind of the theme of what we're getting at here is I think there's going to be times where people, again, you're going to have the failures, you're going to have the all of those things. But I think the continual process to show up is such an important aspect of the journey. So Marcus, as we wrap here, kind of one final question for you. If you were to rewind the clock back 20 years, getting into the CrossFit competing side of things, obviously the journey of starting a business, knowing what you know now, what's some advice you'd give yourself?
Go big on Facebook ads in 2016.
Oh my gosh.
There we go.
That was good. That was good.
I would say looking back, I'd probably tell that, because 20 years ago, I was just graduating from college. I think 20 years ago I was about dropping out of med school. Either way, right around then, I would have just probably said something to the effect of like, look, whatever seems like the biggest mountain and the biggest obstacle and the scariest thing of your life that's in front of you right now or next, it's not going to be the last. There's going to be a lot more. And you'll on the other side of whatever this is. Actually, I might start by saying these are going to be some painful times you're going to go through. And if you don't experience the depths of this pain and this challenge, whatever comes after that won't have any meaning, and it won't be something that you'll grow and learn from. So hang in there, buddy. Just hang in there. I love you. And it's okay to fuck up real bad.
Yep. That's well said.
It's a good word.
So if folks want to engage further with you, functional bodybuilding, what's the best way to do that?
Well, if you're not giving me a follow on all the various social media outlets that you look at, then please do. It's just my name, Marcus Philly, everywhere. And then, functional bodybuilding's been my business for 8 years. And
sign up for Persist.
We offer great training solutions. And even
that's talent there.
Yeah, we're offering one-to-one coaching for anybody who's really anybody. But if you got some listeners who are motivated high achievers and are really looking to simplify those pillars that I talked about on this podcast and operationalize it in your life and have a system and a plan that you can follow, like that's where I'm pouring a lot of my energy and time into these days. So get onto functionalbodybuilding.com, reach out that way.
I usually approach Persist with a lot of joy, except on Tuesdays when it's leg day. Okay, that's a day full of fear. That is a day full of fear, my friend.
That's right. Well, that's right.
It's awesome.
That's good. Well, Marcus, thanks for spending time with us. These are super valuable insights that I know a lot
so good.
We'll glean some great stuff from.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience and dive into topics that are new and old. So thank you guys for the questions.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thanks for engaging with this episode of the Masters of Resilience podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend or colleague. Stay up to date on all the latest episodes and get exclusive resources at mastersofresilience.com. We'll see you next time.